Welcome back for another deep dive. This time, we're taking a closer look at March. And wow, you guys sent in a ton of really interesting stuff.
It's amazing how much there is to uncover about a month that we think we know so well.
I know, right? I thought I had March pretty much figured out, but after going through all these sources, let me tell you, there's a lot more to it than just, spring break and basketball.
It's true. For instance, did you know that March wasn't always the third month of the year?
Wait, really?
Yeah. In Roman times, March actually kicked off the year.
Whoa, that's a totally different way of looking at the calendar.
It is. And the name March itself actually comes from Mars, the Roman god of war.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Why would the Romans, a society that was all about conquest and expansion, start the year with any other month?
Exactly. It was a time for launching new campaigns and, asserting their dominance.
So that saying March comes in like a lion. It really meant business back then.
And it did.
But speaking of spring, didn't I read somewhere that March 1st is still the start of spring, like officially, for meteorologists?
You're absolutely right. Most people think of spring starting around March 20th or 21st, the vernal equinox, right? But meteorologists, they actually mark the start of spring on March 1st.
So there are two different springs happening in March. That's fascinating. Why the difference, though?
Well, the vernal equinox, or what we call astronomical spring, that's based on the Earth's position relative to the sun. But meteorological spring, that's all about temperature patterns. It makes it easier for meteorologists to track those seasonal changes more consistently.
Oh, so it's more about the weather patterns on the ground rather than the Earth's position in space.
Exactly.
Wow, March is already full of surprises, and we're just getting started.
And believe me, there are plenty more surprises in store. Speaking of surprises, when I was going through the materials you sent, one thing that really struck me was just how many significant historical events happen in March.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? It's like a month packed with turning points.
It is. And some of them, they completely changed the course of history.
Like what kind of events are we talking about?
Well, for starters, the Ides of March, of course. March 15th, 44 BCE, the day Julius Caesar was assassinated.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. Didn't that mark like the end of the Roman Republic?
It did. That assassination led to the rise of the Roman Empire, a complete shift in power.
Wow, talk about a threshold moment.
And centuries later, we have another major event, this time in America, March 5th, 1770, the Boston Massacre.
I remember learning about that in school. Wasn't that like one of the sparks that ignited the American Revolution?
It was a pivotal moment, a relatively small event, but it fueled the flames of rebellion against British rule, ultimately leading to the birth of a new nation.
It's wild to think that both of these events, separated by so much time and happening in such different parts of the world, both occurred in March and both led to such massive transformations. Makes you wonder if there's something about March, something that makes it a time for upheaval.
Right. Is it just a coincidence? Or does March somehow encourage these kinds of dramatic shifts?
It's a fascinating thought.
It is. Maybe it's connected to that natural cycle of death and rebirth we see in spring,
Yeah.
Mirroring the societal shifts that happened during those times.
I like that. It's like March acts as a catalyst for change, both globally and historically.
Exactly. And it's not just about conflict and upheaval either. March has also seen some pretty incredible positive transitions, like the invention of the telephone.
Oh, yeah. Alexander Graham Bell patented the telephone on March 7th, 1876.
Think about how that one invention revolutionized communication. It paved the way for the interconnected world we live in today.
It's amazing to think that something that we take for granted now, like being able to talk to anyone anywhere in the world, was born in March.
It is, and it's another example of how March seems to be a time for groundbreaking innovations and advancements.
But it's not just technology, right? There's also Gandhi's Salt March, which began on March 12th, 1930.
Absolutely. A turning point in India's struggle for independence from British rule.
Talk about a powerful movement. It really captured the world's attention and showed the power of peaceful protest.
It did. And it's another example of how March seems to inspire action and transformation.
It's incredible, right? March is packed with all these pivotal moments, both big and small, that have shaped our world.
It really is. But, all this talk about history and global events, it got me thinking about March on a more personal level, too.
Yeah, me too. Like, what does March mean for us as individuals, not just societies?
Right. And you know what came to mind? New Year's resolutions.
Oh, you mean like how many of us have actually stuck to those resolutions by the time March rolls around?
Exactly. Let's be honest. How many of us are still going strong with those goals we set back in January?
I know I'm not.
Me neither. And according to the research you sent, only about 8% of people actually manage to stick with their New Year's resolutions.
Wow, that's pretty discouraging. Why do you think that is? Why is it so hard to stay motivated past January?
Well, I think it's partly because that initial burst of motivation we feel in January, it tends to fade as we settle back into our routines, you know?
Yeah, the excitement of a new year wears off and we kind of just fall back into our old habits.
Right. But here's the thing. Even though a lot of us struggle with resolutions in March, it's actually a really great time to hit the reset button.
Really? Why would March be a good time for that? I would think that by then, we'd all be feeling pretty defeated, ready to give up on any goals we set for ourselves.
I know it sounds counterintuitive, but think about it. March is all about transition and renewal.
Spring is literally in the air.
Exactly. Flowers are blooming, baby animals are being born, the trees are starting to bud. Nature is showing us that new beginnings are possible.
So instead of dwelling on our failed resolutions, we can kind of tap into that March energy and use it to our advantage.
Exactly. It's a chance to realign our goals with the natural rhythm of things.
I like that. It's like a reminder that even when we stumble, there's always an opportunity to pick ourselves up and start fresh.
And that's something that March embodies perfectly.
It seems like there's this recurring theme here, this idea that March is about embracing change.
push to do something about it.
So instead of just letting change happen to us,
Yeah.
we can use that energy to make some choices, decide where we want to go from here.
Absolutely. And that's where this idea of renewal comes in. March isn't just about letting go of the old stuff. It's about actively creating something new.
I love that.
Mm.
Okay, so we've talked about March's historical significance, its connection to nature, even how it affects us psychologically. But let's be real, we can't forget about all the fun stuff.
Right.
I mean, the sources you guys sent in are packed with amazing March facts, and I, for one, I'm ready for more. What else have you got?
I'm ready when you are.
Okay, how about this? There's a festival in India, Holi, and they often celebrate it in March. And get this, people throw these bright-colored powders at each other.
It's incredible, right?
Sounds like a giant party.
It is. It's this beautiful celebration of spring, It's about good triumphing over evil, the arrival of new life, all that.
Wow, what an awesome way to welcome spring. And speaking of colorful, the Cherry Blossom Festival in D.C., that usually starts in late March, right? Those pink blooms, they transform the whole city.
It's breathtaking, isn't it? It really captures that feeling of beauty and renewal that just goes hand in hand with March. People come from all over the world to see it.
It makes sense. It's like a reminder to appreciate those moments of change and transition.
Yeah.
Because they don't last forever,
That's true.
Okay, switching gears a bit here. Did you know that March is National Reading Month in the U.S.?
It makes sense. It's the perfect time to just curl up with a good book, especially as the weather starts to warm up. Maybe a time to explore some new ideas, too, New perspectives.
Oh, I like that connection. And hey, for any stargazers out there, March is the best time to see the constellation Leo, that majestic figure in the spring sky.
Leo the lion, a symbol of strength and courage, fitting for March, don't you think? A month that, sometimes it takes courage to face all that change, all those challenges.
I never thought about it that way, but it's true. And let's not forget about those quirky holidays March has to offer, like National Puppy Day. March 23rd, mark your calendars, people.
Who doesn't love puppies?
I know, right?
It's just a heartwarming reminder of new life and fresh starts, all very March themes, wouldn't you say?
For sure. And for all the math fans out there, March 14th, that's Pi Day.
Ah, yes, 3.14159 and so on.
Gotta love those never-ending numbers. It's a day to celebrate the wonder of math, something that stays constant even when everything else is changing all around us.
I like that.
Okay, so we've got history, nature, personal growth, and even some fun mixed in. It really does seem like March has something for everyone, doesn't it?
It does. It's a month that truly has it all. But, before we wrap up this section, there's one more fascinating aspect of March that I think is worth talking about.
Ooh, okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more. Okay,
yeah.
lay it on me. What else is there about March that we haven't even touched on yet?
Well, we spent a lot of time looking at March from the, the northern hemisphere perspective.
Yeah.
But what about the southern hemisphere? Down there, March is actually the beginning of autumn.
That's right. While we're up here experiencing all those, threshold moments of spring, down south, they're transitioning into a completely different season.
Exactly.
Like March is this, this mirror, reflecting different experiences depending on where you are in the world.
Yeah, it really is. And, that difference in perspective, well, it got me thinking about all the other, unique ways that March is celebrated around the globe.
Oh, like what?
Well, for instance, did you know that March is often when the aurora borealis, the northern lights, they kind of intensify?
Northern Lights. Wow, no, I didn't know that. Why March, though? Is there, something special about March that makes them, more visible?
It's actually linked to the equinox. You see, the Earth's position in relation to the sun during those equinoxes, well, it can sometimes cause increased solar activity, and that, in turn, can create those spectacular light shows up in the sky.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. So March is giving us these amazing celestial light shows right when the natural world is, coming back to life. It's like a double dose of renewal. Are there any other global celebrations or events in March that kind of highlight that idea of change and new beginnings?
Absolutely. In fact, March is when Finland celebrates something called Earth Month.
Earth Month?
Yeah, they actually call it Malisku, and it's a time when the ground starts to thaw after, a long winter.
Makes sense.
It's a celebration of, nature's resilience and the promise of new life.
I love that. It's like the whole planet is hitting that reset button, just like we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. And it all goes back to that theme of renewal and hope, right? A theme that we see throughout March's history, its traditions, even its natural events, you know? It's this powerful reminder that even in the coldest, darkest times, spring is always on its way.
That's a really beautiful thought. It makes me think about that old saying, March comes in like a lion, out like a lamb.
Yeah.
And it seems like that applies to more than just the weather, doesn't it?
I think you're right. March can definitely start off feeling, well, intense, right? A little unpredictable, even a bit chaotic, just like a lion.
Yeah.
But then, as the month goes on, there's this softening, a sense of things kind of settling into place.
Like a lamb.
Like a lamb, exactly.
It's a good reminder that even the most, the most turbulent times, they can lead to something peaceful.
They can. And that's a pretty powerful message to carry with us, wouldn't you say? Not just in March, but all year round.
Yeah, totally. Embrace the change, ride that wave, and know that even after the roughest storm, the sun's going to come out eventually.
Well,
this has been amazing. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of March. It's not just another month on the calendar anymore. It's more like, like a time of transformation.
Yeah.
Celebration and, just endless possibilities, really.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
A huge thank you to all of you listening for inspiring this whole deep dive. I hope you've enjoyed this journey through March as much as we have.
And, remember, this is just the beginning. There's always more to learn about March, so keep exploring. Keep those questions coming, and keep embracing the spirit of this incredible month.
We'll see you all next time for another deep dive into the extraordinary in Yulei.